what's going on, everybody? It's Rich Perez welcoming you back into another weekly dose of the rundown. Of course, joined with me as always, my co-host all the way from the U, Kayson Davis. How you doing, Kay?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. We got a special guest in the building with us this week to start off the weekly rundown because we had a big fight that went on Saturday night. So we got to bring in my older cousin, boxing savant, host of the Guard Your Grill podcast, Rob Morales, a.k.a. Roberto Flack. Que hola, primo.
Yo, what up, man? Appreciate you having me on, man.
Good, man. So, unification bout between Fimo, Lopez, and Vasily Lomachenko. I had actually went on your Instagram when you made the post, and I said class will be in session. I kind of went into this, and I'm like, I think it's probably going to go eerily similar to when Floyd had fought Canelo a bunch of years ago. That was not the case at all. I think the biggest takeaways was, the aggressiveness showed by Lopez. Lomachenko looked like he kind of figured him out a bit in the second half. So when the decision came out, obviously I'm not mad at the decision. I looked at that and said Lopez definitely won, especially after the 12th round. But, the scorecards were a little crazy to me. I thought it was a lot closer. I had Teofimo winning the first round, rounds 3 through 6, and then round 12, I had Lomachenko winning 7 through 11, and then I thought the second round and the 7th round could have went either way.
Yeah, that's about – I think when you talk to a lot of people, you're not going to find a lot of people that scored a fight 119-109. You're not going to find a lot of people that did that. But the consensus, man, listen, like you said, it's funny you mentioned Canelo and Floyd because, funny enough, a lot of us within the crew were kind of looking at that fight as such. When you look at the parallels – again, we're not comparing Lomachenko to Floyd Mayweather, but when we look at what was coming to the ring that night with Teofimo's experience and Lomachenko's experience and the skill sets, it kind of mirrored that. Young, Canelo, the young bull, went in, and we're thinking like, yeah, Floyd's gonna have a challenge, but then when you kind of peel back, the proverbial onion, you kind of look at it, and you're like, Canelo probably wasn't ready for that. He just wasn't. So naturally, that's what a lot of us thought, man. But wow, this is one thing I've always constantly said about boxing, man. It is the theater of the unexpected, and I talked to a lot of people that picked Lopez by knockout or Lomachenko by a wide decision. I didn't speak to anybody at all that, number one, said that Lopez was going to outbox Lomachenko for a solid portion of the fight. And we learned a lot, man, about Teofimo Lopez Saturday night. We learned a lot.
I completely agree with you. I think I was kind of under the same thing that you as far as like talking to people about it. I know Timmy Brad. I was watching Max on Boxing that Friday evening, and Timmy Bradley was on there saying he expected a knockout in the 6th round. I talked to my pops, before going into the fight that night. He said he expected a knockout. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't think myself that he would outbox Lomachenko. That was definitely shocking. What were your thoughts overall going into the fight? Like, how did you feel about the fight?
I picked Lomachenko to stop Teofimo in the 10th round. Now, funny enough, when you look at things that transpired in the 10th round, it almost looked like it was heading that direction. But yeah, listen, it's one of these odd situations where you have a guy like Lomachenko who we've seen make guys quit on the stool, like power punchers, bigger dudes. He stopped Jorge Linares. He dropped Luke Campbell. He, dropped Pedraza, all these guys.
Rigondeaux.
And even that, one of the most decorated amateurs too is with Lomachenko, and he made him quit.
Mm-hmm.
So there was so much going into that where it was, you wanted to give Teofimo the dap for taking the fight, okay? For taking the fight, which a lot of dudes at 23 years old would never go near somebody like a Lomachenko, you know? And a lot of that played into our psyches going into that fight, you know? Because there's nothing that Teofimo showed per se as it concerns. Again, we knew he can punch. We all knew that. We knew he was bigger. But the boxing ability and the patience, the jab he was using, the body work, being able to, I guess this goes with the patience, but there's points in the fight where Lomachenko, he has a tendency of the first couple of rounds, he'll throw these little feints. And the reason he does that is because he just wants to see what your movement's going to be when he actually does it again and throws something. Teofimo, to his credit, man, didn't really fall for a lot of those little veteran tricks. And I think while people talk about, you're hearing a lot, you know, the water cooler talk Monday morning, right? You're hearing a lot about online and that Lomachenko started late. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. That wasn't out of design. That was because Teofimo Lopez was doing stuff that was confusing Lomachenko.
So you didn't think that it was more him like respecting his power at all?
No, it's that too. I mean, it's that too. Like I think there was it's all like a lot of it is all predicated on Lomachenko's approach. It's like I said, like the feints, like moving, reading, just reading like Teofimo's body language and see what he reacts to. And I think when you look at historically, when you look at Lomachenko's fights, like they all kind of play in a similar way. Like he's like a noted slow starter, but for a reason. But as the rounds started ticking, 3, 4, 5, at least for me, it started to set in that there's a problem, you know, and you really notice it by the, like, what was it, like the 8th round, where all of a sudden Lomachenko just opened up, you know. They knew they were down in the fight, and to your point, I think he was hesitant of the power. Like, and I think he felt some of those body shots. And at some point Lomachenko, to his credit, man, he got out of the shell, and then you started seeing him land shots. He was taking more risks, you know, but in those instances, man, it wasn't like Teofimo was like really backpedaling much. He would land his shots too, and the uppercut, which is like one of the stories of the fight.
Yeah, I think what was probably the most shocking to me too. I'm sorry to cut you off, Kayson.
Right.
But I think the most shocking thing to me, when the 12th round had come around, I thought he was probably going to backpedal a little bit. Coach, his dad was actually saying, you know, you got the fight won, and he just surprised me a lot. How he came forward and went at him in that round. And that, like I said, the 12th round was where I'm like, he definitely won the fight. Yeah, he sealed it in the 12th. I think. Well, I mean, even though, I mean, we'll talk about scorecards and stuff, but I mean, I think that 12th round, the fact that, I mean, he clearly won that round. However, when the fight ended, like, I'm looking at him like, Teofimo won this fight, man. The thing I was worried about was the scorecards. And I was telling my people, I was like, yo, man, I have a funny feeling we're going to hear like some funny scorecards, you know? And granted, one of them was, but, you know, I mean, personally, and we're going to keep talking about this, but I mean, I think the right man won the fight, man. Like, I've watched it yesterday. It's for me, it's hard to see where Lomachenko like legitimately won this fight. Agreed.
Yeah, definitely. I guess I kind of want to get into. I guess I don't want to jump too far ahead, but just we kind of talked about how the iffy scorecards and thing. What do you think of, like, if they do have? I'm not sure if they announced that there's a rematch or anything yet. But what do you think you may expect from the rematch if they do have a rematch?
I'll be honest with you guys. I really don't think. I mean, again, who knows, right? But something is telling me Lomachenko is probably going to go back to 130, because if you just look at the track record, it's not. And let me say this before. Lomachenko wasn't out of his weight class, okay? Because the thing that people got to realize is that he had 4 fights at this division, and he fought for a world title in his first. So it's not like he's so much out of his – is he the biggest lightweight? Absolutely not. Similar to Pacquiao, he's not the biggest welterweight. He's not. But do you think Pacquiao can fight at 135 now? Probably not. But I think with Lomachenko, I just think. I mean, again, we got to see, but I really feel it's going to be dependent on what they see from the fight with Teofimo Lopez, and whether or not it's the smart move, man. Because I'll tell you, like, I think he has a better chance going back to 130 and beating somebody like Burchelt and getting another world title, because at this point, like, you have no choice but to fight Teofimo. And think about Teofimo's confidence going into a rematch.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So they got to really tread lightly with that, but I don't know, man. I like, if I'm managing Lomachenko, I kind of probably want to put him back at 130. I think he could still win a world title there, maybe go for a second quasi run. Again, look, he's 32 years old. That's not old per se, but the one thing I will say that Saturday night, I think a piece of his aura got chipped.
I agreed. I completely agree with you. I guess what the other thing in regards to this fight that I wanted to get into you was the fact that there was no rematch clause. Do you think that that's gross negligence on Bob Arum and Lomachenko's parts? Maybe a little too much cockiness there. Like, I know Teofimo came out today and said like he's not closing the door on a rematch. I think probably after that fight, a lot of us want to see him fight Devin Haney, but you know, like, what are your thoughts on all that?
I mean, you know, Bob was, I don't know if you guys saw the interview the other day, like, he was talking about, he's like, he doesn't like rematch clauses, and, you know, it's a waste of time. But funny enough, like, he's instituted them in other fights too, so take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, man, I think that's kind of the mystery at this point. I mean, I think with Teofimo, he has the attitude, like, I mean, yeah, he'll revisit it, but, like, I think for him, he's kind of wants just to get to the next level. You know, he's the man now, and I think also too for Top Rank and Bob Arum, man. I mean, I think for them, when you look at you got a 23-year-old kid who's now the undisputed champion of the world. He's very charismatic. He's a big puncher. He obviously he's got a hell of a boxing ability. They got something to work with here, man. Because the one thing I said about Lomachenko, the unfortunate thing was, as good as he is, and I just don't think he was going to be like a crossover star. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, boxing, it's a business, it's a sport, but there's the business side of it. And I feel that's been kind of the problem with Lomachenko. We all know who he is, but it's like, I always ask the question, like, what do people think, like, a fight with Lomachenko or whomever, like, would do on pay-per-view? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's... Not every guy's a pay-per-view fighter, but I think with Teofimo Lopez, again, he's American. He's again charismatic. His pops, youngest undisputed lightweight champion, beat the number 1, 2 guy in the world. Like, there's so much to ride with him at this point. So, and I don't know if you guys saw the interview today, or it was the post-fight. He was already not calling out, but like, they asked him about Devin Haney and asked him about Gervonta Davis, and he was like basically saying what a lot of us kind of chime in about it, as far as like, you know, why don't you guys like try to fight this guy or that guy? And he at 23 years old did it, and he's sitting back with all the belts. So kind of sky's the limit with him, man. It's just Lomachenko's. He's really the question mark, man. He really is.
Yeah, I think no, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say, you said Lomachenko should maybe consider going back down, but let's say he does stay where he's at. Is there anything maybe you've seen in the fight where it's like, maybe, okay, he has a chance of maybe winning the next fight or something like that?
See, that, I mean, watching the fight the second time, you know, Sunday morning, it's like, I try to see if there were things that he could have maybe approached a little better, man. But I think it really comes down to, and it's like the argument of, you know, Lomachenko started late, but, you know, I asked the question, what do you think made him start late? Teofimo came in ready. People got to realize we didn't see it. You know, we didn't see the vision. This dude has been watching Lomachenko for the past 2-3 years, and they've been preparing for him. And I don't think that was the case with Lomachenko. And not to give any excuses for him, you know what I'm saying? As far as people saying he might have taken this fight for granted, maybe he did. But this is why when you see whether it's promoters or networks and what have you, start comparing guys to all-time greats, you gotta pump the brakes a little bit, because it's situations like that where, like, you shouldn't, as good a boxer as you are, man, you shouldn't be tailing like 7 rounds to a kid. Shout to my man Train, who said, like, honestly, we might not, like, Teofimo, right as we're talking right now, might not even know how good he is yet, and that's crazy. So I don't know, like, I don't know if they're going to approach the rematch yet. But then again, like, I look at, like, what else is at 135. I mean, listen, he's the undisputed champion at this point. So I'm trying to see, like, what else Lomachenko can kind of do around that weight. And the other thing we got to think about too, man, is how long is Teofimo going to be at 135? You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot, man. There's Saturday night really was, in essence, I saw an article reading, but it might have been a paradigm shift, man. It might have been. I mean, we'll find out. We'll find out as the months go on. But I don't know, man. Lomachenko left that fight looking like, wow. Like, I think even he knows he lost, man. He's saying, like, I think he knows he lost.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue for him when you actually sit down and watch the fight. And talking about, like, Teofimo's his post-fight interview, I think what he said in there was great. When, he talked about a lot of guys want to be Floyd, but nobody wants to be Pretty Boy.
Right.
Which is completely true. That's actually one of the problems I've had in boxing, where you got all these guys that are undefeated and want to make these claims that they're undefeated and whatnot. But I sit back and I'm like, well, who did you really fight? And that's kind of where I'm at with the whole pound for pound thing. Like, Lomachenko, and maybe it's an ESPN bias because Top Rank is there and everything like that, but Lomachenko is regarded #1 pound for pound. You got Terrence Crawford right behind him, and I'm sitting back thinking, I don't necessarily, like, agree with that. Like, I think if Terrence Crawford were to fight someone like a Errol Spence, I couldn't see him winning that fight. This is obviously pre-car accident and everything like that, but when I look at a Terrence Crawford, I just sit back and I'm like, well, who did he really fight? His first real test is honestly going to be against Kell Brook, and before that, his last fight, the guy's name escapes me right now, but
Mean Machine. That's how I'm just going to refer to him as Mean Machine.
Right. I looked at that fight. I actually thought Terrence Crawford was losing a good chunk of that fight until he kind of wore him down.
He got dropped. That wasn't a slip, by the way. He got hurt in that the first or second round. He got hurt. Crawford. Crawford is he's in a tough position. The only thing I'll say with Lomachenko is, being that he's 15, in only 15 fights, like, when you look at the guys he fought and things, like, there is merit there. The problem with Crawford is, it's the politics of the sport. You know what I'm saying? One group of people has the vision on lock, and they're not going to want to do business with this guy because there's just no incentive for them, as opposed to like Danny, like the situation Danny's in right now, fighting Errol Spence. What's a better monetary fight for you, Errol Spence or Terrence Crawford? And that's really all it is, man. But I think after this Kell Brook fight, I think Top Rank has exhausted every single option they can really throw at Crawford that doesn't include those guys over there. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, we've talked about Crawford Spence, man, but it's one of those situations, man. We just need to see it before these guys start to – they're young. Don't get it twisted, but you don't want a situation where they're fighting 2-3 fights, like, even from where we're speaking now, and you're not going to get the best versions of them when they do finally fight. We got to get over that in boxing, which is, again, Saturday night, a young kid like that went in and fought, like, arguably the best 1 or 2, whatever, and he took the risk, and now his ascension is going to be, like, through the roof, So Crawford's that's a tough situation, man. That's a really tough situation.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of speaking of Errol Spence, I know we all kind of know about the terrible accident he was in, but I believe he has a fight coming up, right?
Danny Garcia.
December 5th. Yeah, December 5th.
So I just wanted to say, what you may think some problems he may run into coming back in his first fight, and kind of maybe how you see that fight kind of turning out.
How can he take a punch? You know what I'm saying? I think that's really the $1 million question, man. Listen. I mean, we all saw the accident, you know what I'm saying? We saw the video footage. I mean, he's blessed to even be in a position to fight this December. You know, it's like, you know, bless him, you know. He just started sparring, I believe. You know, we're not going to hear much about that. But listen, man, I mean, look, Danny Garcia, for whatever it's worth, is not a guy that you're going to – I don't feel is a guy you're going to beat very easy because, you know, when you look at the Sean Porter fights and you look at the Keith Thurman fights, those weren't whitewashes, you know. He's a skilled dude, you know. How much does he have left, you know, like how hungry is he in relation to Spence, you know, because – the thing with, I mean, listen, we all want the Crawford and Spence fight, but like both of those guys, they want that fight too. Like neither guy is ducking the other. We understand the business, but I mean, I just think Danny, he might have seen his best days, but it really does come down to like what I said, like where is Spence physically? Like if he gets hit with one of those little hooks that Danny lands, like if he's in like at least mid range. Is that going to cause a problem? You know, so I'm looking forward to that. I mean, obviously Spence should be that, you know, a decent favorite in that fight, but I'm looking forward to that, man. It's really a lot of us are. I think all of us are really looking at Spence more than like what Danny's going to do as far as like where Spence's conditioned at, because if Spence is the Spence of old, I mean, like going into the fight prior to the accident, I mean, like I think he was like a 3.5 or 4-1 favorite. You know what I mean? So. We'll see. December 5th, man. That's going to be the second fight, I believe, that they're going to have fans in the stadium because the Tank and Leo fight next week is going to be at the Alamo Dome, and they got like a little bit of fans. So, but you know, shout out to my man Juan. That's going. He's going to the Spence Garcia fight. So
AT&T Stadium, right?
Yeah, man. So it's that's gonna be pretty interesting.
Definitely. I mean, for Danny, it's a low risk, high reward type of fight. And I mean, when I heard that it was initially announced, I was shocked that would be Spence's first fight back. Not that I'm mad that he would take it, but the fact that you go through what you go through and Danny Garcia is the first fight that you take back is crazy to me. Because I mean, Danny's kind of the aura of Danny Garcia.
Yeah, he's seen it. I think he's seen his best days. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Not to knock him, but. It's just when you look at his resume at welterweight, like he already lost to Thurman, he lost to Porter, and it's like now you're fighting a guy who's better than him. So that's why it's like I salute Danny. You know what I'm saying? He actually lives part-time down here.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So man, it's you look at these fighters, man, they get to a point in their careers where, you know, they've made the money, you know, they're living good, you know, and I always equate, like, you know, to Rocky 3, you know, when Mick says to Rocky, he goes, you know what the worst thing that ever happened to a fighter? They become civilized. And sometimes that plays out in the ring. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, when you as opposed to, like, you know, again, we're talking about Fimo Lopez. He went in there, he had everything to gain, man. Had everything to gain, and he was hungry. When you start making the money and you've seen it, you've been there. Some fighters are different, but like it's not the same when you're a young fighter trying to grab that bag or grab that belt or get to that level. So we'll see, man. I mean, listen, this is like to your point. This isn't necessarily a tune-up kind of fight for Errol Spence. So, you know, there's intrigue there that I don't feel was there a year ago.
I kind of want to talk about Deontay Wilder for a second. I know we all saw, like...
It was on my mind, too. It was literally on my mind.
That last fight, do you kind of... You know, he came out with the excuse that he had all that jewelry on. It was heavy. Do you kind of believe that excuse a little bit, and kind of what do you expect from the next fight?
Well, listen, man, I mean, are we going to get a next fight? At this point, I don't even know, because it's just the thing with Deontay Wilder that I've never seen a fighter I've been watching boxing 30 years, man. And I've never seen a fighter who was so dominant yet so, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry?
Flawed, like skillfully flawed.
But I'm missing the word. But basically, you know, we've seen fights where he's been rocked. We've seen fights where he's just losing the entire fight, and then he just lands this big knockout. You know, he started late, like 19, and he still won the bronze medal. And I forgot what it was, the '08 Olympics or one of those. Vulnerable. That's the word I'm looking for. His vulnerability was kind of part of his selling point in a way. You know, he wasn't Tyson. You know, when people comparing him to Tyson and everything, I'm like, come on, man. Like, Tyson was dominating guys. Like Wilder, like even I don't know if you guys saw the fight with this dude Gerald Washington. Okay, Gerald Washington was a former Buffalo Bills second team like practice squad member, and he was outboxing Deontay Wilder until Deontay Wilder's landed a big right hand and ended the fight. So most top tier heavyweights, particularly champions, they don't usually win just by like this big punch and they're losing the fight. So skipping ahead, you know, prior to the second Fury fight, I challenge people. I go look back at his four previous fights, starting back from the first Fury fight. I thought Fury won the first fight. I mean, even with the 2 knockdowns, he won every round outside of the 2 knockdowns. And if you go by the points, Deontay Wilder, to me, only got 2 rounds out of that. But again, with the 10-8, still have Fury winning. So it's like, all right, let's move from there. He fights this cat, Dominic Brazil, knocks him out cold, right?
Then he fights a little knockout, by the way.
Yeah, that was a meme spectacular, right? So then he fights King Kong again. And King Kong is, again, winning the entire fight until what happens? He gets knocked out. So going into the second Fury fight, I have no problem saying that I felt he was going to knock Fury out, because I felt back then that Fury might have kind of just in essence blew his wad, and that was just it, and he was just going for that payday and just like have a nice day. Well, that didn't happen. He came in heavier. He had seen Wilder already, and he knew what to do. Wilder also, what people tend to forget, he also gained weight. He gained like 10, 12 extra pounds. They're saying like the whole thing messed his legs up. And I don't know, man. I mean, what I saw was a guy that figured Wilder out from the last fight, and you saw how the fight played out. Wilder didn't win a round, and he was gassed by the second round, man. So then the whole thing with the trainer, with Mark Breland, letting him go. And
I was just going to ask you about that, too. I feel like that's probably the worst mistake of his career. And it was crazy because it almost seemed like you expected it to happen, because he was definitely frustrated that Mark was the one that threw the towel.
But let me ask you guys this. What do you think would have happened had he not thrown the towel in, the route the fight was going? I
think some bad things would have happened to Deontay Wilder. Honestly, it's possible he whether it's some long-term damage, and he might not be here right now.
He might have gotten hurt really bad. And it's not like Tyson Fury is this big puncher, but when you're getting punched a lot, and he got hit a lot in that fight, Tyson Fury is still a 240-plus pound man. Or 50-something, I think, at that point, which is another thing we tend to forget, man. Like, Fury's a lot bigger man than him that can box. So, as far as, we talk about going, Wilder at this point, man, I mean, I don't know if you guys been following the storyline at this point. There's, a lot of uncertainty as it concerns whether or not this fight is even going to take place in the foreseeable future, because it was supposed to happen in December. We're starting to see all the dates getting taken up, and then it's so hard to do fights in December because it's Christmas time. People are traveling. I mean, again, amidst everything going on with COVID, I mean, I don't think it's going to be crazy traveling this year, but at the same time, historically putting fights right before or after Christmas never really panned out, because that's just not the priority for people. So they scrapped that, or at least in essence, it's not going to happen in December. But Fury's his whole thing, or at least Bob Arum was saying that they had Wilder and team had a window of an opportunity to get the rematch situated, signed, date, boom, boom, boom. Fox and ESPN were working together on the low. Todd DeBuff, who works with Top Rank, who's the president of Top Rank, Bob Arum's stepson, he was on the horn like constantly with one of the reps from the PBC. So, when people talk about, these guys don't work together, BS. They all these guys know each other, man. But Fox and ESPN were trying to come up with dates. And again, we're talking about college football. We're talking about the NFL. We're talking about all this stuff that it's like, it was going to be really hard. And then no fans and no idea where it was going to be. There was no way they were going to have this fight in a bubble. There's absolutely no way. So at this point, they're saying that the rematch contract, or as far as the obligation, is null and void because I guess it expired. We don't know the totality of that yet. There's the concerns like if Wilder has if he has any measures to say, hey, like, you have to fight us because such and such. We haven't heard anything from Wilder. We haven't said anything like, this is wrong. We haven't heard anything. So Fury would I think a lot of us would do in his position. He's taking, I think, whatever interim or tune-up fight in December. They're trying to plan it. I don't know if it's going to pan out, but the idea is that he's going to fight a tune-up. Anthony Joshua has a fight against Pulev in December. And then they're trying to set up a showdown, hopefully by the summertime in Wembley Stadium, which honestly, he's going to make double the money than he did with Wilder. So, I mean, let me ask y'all this, man. Like, if you had a choice to see a Fury Joshua or Fury Wilder 3, which one are you guys going to pick?
Well, I won't speak for Kayson, but me personally, even before Fury Wilder 2, I was saying I would rather see Fury and Joshua fight just because I thought, I don't think Joshua was the most skilled heavyweight like he was kind of billed to be. I think he's still a more skilled fighter than Deontay Wilder is, and that's always been a more appealing fight for me.
Yeah, I would probably just say the same thing, kind of like Rich said. Even though, kind of like to the point you were making, Wilder has that kind of like puncher's chance always because he can just come out and like knock you out. But I think just the way the last fight looked in general, I think the more hype fight would be with Joshua.
Yeah, exactly. And rematches usually tend to happen when there's a criteria. It was a close fight. It was an early knockout, or it was like a back and forth type of thing. But I mean, this was a complete domination. And people could talk about the gloves and everything, but it's just like, is that really what it was? But with Wilder, he's another one, man. Like, where do you go from here? Do you take a couple tune-up fights? Listen, man. Like, what about him and Andy Ruiz? You know what I'm saying? Like, that could happen. He could take a couple fights, and then I think maybe revisit it, while Fury and Joshua handle their business. Now, the one sticking point, though, with this whole thing, man, is Wilder's going to be 36 years old next year, man. So, granted, athletes have progressed. We all watch sports. You know what I'm saying? Like, we see 33, 34 that are still playing at the top of their game. So, and also adding that Wilder he started late, but I also say he's been getting hit a lot recently. And at 36, you don't really want that to be happening. So personally, I feel what's going to end up happening is like the Wilder Fury 3 fight's going to get scrapped for the immediate. And like what I actually said after the second fight is I really think they should go back to the drawing board. I didn't say get rid of Mark Breland, which I still don't understand, but whatever. And kind of just reevaluate your next year or two. And I just don't think him hopping back into that Fury fight was going to do him any good. I think if anything, it would have just made things worse. Mm-hmm. So this might be a blessing in disguise for him. For Wilder.
Right. Kayson, you got anything?
My follow-up question was going to be, where does Wilder go from here, kind of? So
I would say, we toyed around with with the PBC, you got it's funny enough, man. Like, we think about some of the heavyweights. I mean, they got Glowacki, the Polish dude. But he got knocked out though. There's Andy Ruiz. Again, these aren't guys that are like super world level, but I'm thinking from the perspective of Deontay Wilder, like how we're talking about Lomachenko, like his aura took a major hit February. Major hit, to the point where, I remember talking to some casual fans, man, some of my friends that don't, they watch boxing like, the what I call the weekend warriors, when big fights come around. And these dudes was like, yo, Wilder's the next this, and it's like you don't even hear a peep anymore. So I mean, you gotta kind of take that into considerations. But I don't know, man. I think while a lot is gonna be told as far as when we get a final word that this is happening with Fury, this is happening with Wilder, and then from then we could kind of gauge like what his next year or two is gonna look like.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, you said something too about how he should kind of go back to the drawing board and think about the next 2 years. But also, should he try to change his strategy? Like I said, he kind of has that puncher's chance always. People say he's not the best boxer. Should he kind of get back in there and try to get like his mechanics maybe down a little more?
Yeah, at 36, at 35 years old, man. To be honest, I think what you see, there's just it comes a point where like I remember when Cotto left, he was switching trainers and everything. He got with Freddie Roach and everybody. And listen, and she'll tell you like Cotto is my favorite fighter of like. But I even said, I go, the only thing Freddie Roach did was he brought Cotto back to the basics of what he was. Because I never liked him that much with the Cuban trainer. I think he kind of took him out of his element. He got back with Freddie Roach, who was a little more offensive minded. He kind of went back to the 07, 06 Cotto. But again, at 34, 35 years old, not much change with Cotto. It's just I think he got with a trainer that kind of brought him back to the basics, which is why I wonder why he got rid of Breland, considering Breland has been there from almost like the very beginning. You're not gonna. I mean, there's other guys. There's other trainers there. I'm sure if he called Freddie, if he called whoever, they would at the very least entertain it. But the question is like, is Wilder going with another trainer going to make him like that much better?
Breland's wasn't even his head trainer, correct?
See, that's the question I had, because like they're saying this dude Malik Scott, it was Malik Scott that like his man that was there or something. Like from what I gather, Breland was the guy that
I know he worked with him the most, but I wasn't sure if he was his actual head trainer or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I see, and that's another thing too, man. Like when you got a lot of, and I think this might have something to do with what's going on. Wilder, I think he might just have a lot of people in his head.
Got too many yes men. Starting with that trainer who I think actually might be his head trainer.
I think that's his name. So I think that's what it is, man. I feel it's just I mean, look, man, one day you're on top of the world. People comparing you to Mike Tyson. People comparing you to Muhammad Ali, Joe Louis, and all these guys. And I revert back to the whole point of when they were comparing Lomachenko to Pernell Whitaker and to Floyd Mayweather. And it's like, bro, come on, man. And he definitely. And I don't know if he's gotten over the win. I mean, the loss. Like, I really don't. I'm not 100% that he's like fully mentally gotten over that fight, which might play into why, maybe Wilder's team are balking at the fight. I don't. It's really a mystery, man. But I think we'll know soon enough, because at some point one of these guys is gonna have to make a move here or make a move there, or they say, "Hey, F it, let's just do it in January and get it over."
Right. I guess the other boxing point I wanted to make with you before we get you out of here and move on with the rest of the show was Canelo. I know he's dealing with a lot of legal issues right now with DAZN and Golden Boy and all that. When he made the move up to light heavyweight, I was very skeptical. I know he's got the title and everything, but even with that being said, with his stature and everything, I still question how successful he can be in the long term there. What do you think? What do you think about like his moves and everything like that?
See, the thing what's happening now, I feel, is what has happened with a lot of other fighters when they reach a certain point of their careers. When you talk about guys like Oscar De La Hoya and Floyd Mayweather, who's, for the younger fans, don't even know that they were signed to Top Rank. It's so much time has passed, but whether it's those two, Cotto, Andre Ward, Mikey Garcia, these guys, when they got to a certain level, they branched off. They went and did their own thing. You know what I mean? Or they got smart business wise and they understood, like, you know what, like I've reached a certain point. And I think with Canelo, there's a lot of factors. But I said from the onset of this DAZN deal, and it's funny, man, Richie. I was talking to Salito about this.
Mm-hmm.
I feel DAZN heavily overpaid for Canelo Alvarez, man. Reason being is because, like, I could see if this was like, you know, like if Canelo prior to signing with DAZN was pulling in like 1.4, 1.5 mil pay-per-views at average against B-level guys, C-level guys. And that really wasn't the case. You know, it was when he fought the Floyd, when he fought the Cottos, when he fought the Triple Gs where he made the big money. And the fact that this whole thing was on a streaming app, you know, DAZN is a streaming app that, at least of us talking today, man, like I don't even think they have as many subscribers as the WWE. Like I'm pretty confident they don't.
No, I was just saying the other day, I was getting a haircut talking to my guy Frankie, and I'm just like, yo, honestly, I don't even know why I have DAZN anymore right now. Like, I haven't seen any high level fights that make me want to log. I haven't actually logged in a while. Like, I'm ready to just cancel the subscription, honestly.
I think DAZN's biggest problem. I mean, well, I'll get to them in a minute, but I think the thing with Canelo, I think the big story here is not so much a DAZN, but it's the fact that he wants to part ways with Golden Boy. This has been going on for longer than this whole lawsuit has been going on. You know, it's been lingering. And, you know, what we're starting to find out is that, you know, there was things told to DAZN that weren't told to Canelo and vice versa. You know, premium opponents, what is that? You know, and at this point, you know, they you know, Canelo slams that lawsuit, and then DAZN tries to like give him a restructured deal, which honestly, I don't know if you guys saw the deal. It's nothing better than like what he can get with Al Heyman, you know, because it was predicated on he was making, you know, just so people are aware how it works. Like Golden Boy has a contract with DAZN. Golden Boy has a contract with Canelo. Golden Boy's contract is that they get like $40 million from DAZN for every Canelo fight, and then Golden Boy takes that $40 million and gives Canelo like what I think like 32 or 33 of that, and then they pocket the rest. So the problem is, it's a situation where DAZN doesn't want to pay Canelo that kind of money to fight like to fight Callum Smith or to fight Billy Joe Saunders. They want something bigger. But like when you really look at the landscape, like who are they going to really get on the zone? You know, not like doing a co-promotion, not with like they want their fights on that platform. But what fighters are going to go on that app that aren't within the umbrella of Matchroom or Golden Boy? Which is why when they signed the deal, the question that myself and Coltrane ROD had was, who is Canelo realistically going to fight on that app? And we're starting to find out now that DAZN, when we hear the names, like you heard them, they had Jorge Masvidal as an option. They had Khabib as an option. They had Oscar De La Hoya as an option for Canelo Alvarez, which just signals to me that they really put all their eggs in a basket thinking Canelo was going to bring in these mass amount of subscriptions, which just hasn't happened. Yo, like you can't expect people to dish out however much a month or a year to see a guy fight twice a year. It doesn't add up. It just doesn't. So then they try to do the restructure, right? They're like, all right, well, listen, we'll give you 20 mil a fight, but your back end is going to be predicated on how many subscriptions you bring in. So you're sitting here, you're Canelo Alvarez, and you're like, I can get this deal. And I know he's not going to say it right now. Al Heyman, you're telling me that he can't give him $20 million a fight to go fight Charlo or Benavidez or Plant and give him back end money and he'll be in front of more people?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I feel Canelo, unfortunately, though, he's in a position where he might be out of the ring for a little while because they're going to go to court unless something comes up where they just say, listen, here's your money. here's your money. Let's just part ways. Not spend money on litigation and whatnot. And then Canelo just kind of goes on his own. But I think the biggest thing here is he wants out of Golden Boy. I don't think the beef is so much with DAZN. I think the beef clearly is with Golden Boy.
Yeah, I got one last quick fun one. And, you know, Mike Tyson's been out there boxing again and stuff like that. So if did he have a fight schedule? I don't know if that was true. They were talking about him again.
I mean, this fight looks like it's still, you know, it's happening next month. So we think. I mean, listen, man. I mean, I was fortunate enough to see Mike in his prime. You know, like if you didn't come up in that time. I mean, you know, we got YouTube and everything like that, but Mike Tyson had an aura about him that to this day, and this is why I mentioned the whole thing with Wilder. Wilder didn't have that aura. Mike Tyson had an aura unlike any fighter that I think I've seen since. And when you seen like fighters prior to him with the robe, they come in off like he came in with the towel, no socks in the shoes, Brooklyn, New York, coming in, and it was just like something. For a lot of the dudes that like, I mean, I'm like the first Floridian of the fam. You know, Richie, you know, stayed up in New York with, you know, with moms and everything. But, you know, I was around a lot of New Yorkers at the time, man, and it's like I understood. You know what I'm saying? It was something new, but the way Mike was just wrecking through people, to this day, people like still regard him as that guy. You know, so. To skip to the future, and we seen I mean you guys saw it too, the 10-second clip where he was training and everything.
Crazy.
And all of us were like you know, it's Mike Tyson's Mike Tyson. I think with the whole thing, this is what I feel. I don't know if anything is going to be made of this, you know what I'm saying, but I really feel there's like this little itch in Mike. And I think they want to tread lightly, but I think there's something in him, man, that he just maybe wants to see what he has without putting himself in like moderate danger. And you look at Roy Jones, man, who for me, in my two eyes, he's one of the, I think, top two best fighters I've seen in my life, as far as in his prime. So that's another guy I got to see in his prime. He's amazing. But Roy Jones today is not the Roy Jones from back then who had the movement, the speed, and everything. And it's just like a lot of us kind of expect what's going to happen out of there, even though it's an exhibition. Is it? I don't know, you know. But I really feel with Mike, Mike's like, what, 50? He's like 52 years old. I can't imagine that he would try to fight, like legitimately fight like a top 5 heavyweight. Because truth be told, I mean, listen, if he landed a left hook on anybody today, he would hurt them. I mean, it goes without saying. My concern is like what would happen if like Mike gets hit, you know, and at 50 something years old, it's like that's something like you don't want him to get hurt at this age at the expense of us being like, yeah, let's see Mike Tyson. You know what I'm saying? I've seen Mike's best, and we're not going to see Mike's best anymore. So we'll see, man. I mean, boxing is a very funny sport sometimes, man. It's like, you know, these people, and it shows you how big Mike Tyson is, because here's the crazy part is, and you guys may laugh, depending if they really promote this, and again, we're already like kind of mid-October. I don't know like how far they're going to be doing this promotion, but like this is a fight where casual fans from yesteryear and today would flood in just to see Mike Tyson knock Roy Jones out, and it might be the biggest pay-per-view this year. It's just crazy.
I agree with that, though. I don't think that that's a far-fetched thought at all. When you could, like you said, when you consider who Mike Tyson is, the aura that he brings, and then everything going on around us, there hasn't really been a big fight to, like, it's crazy because I remember when Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez got announced. If you're a boxing fan, like a boxing fan, you know it's a pretty big fight. You were the first one that said it shouldn't be a pay-per-view.
Right.
And like that wasn't a pay-per-view, and so far it's probably been the biggest fight of the year.
I think it's outside of what happened with Wilder Fury. and getting that kind of buzz as far as like the outcome, this is clearly right there, man. Like that goes without saying. And funny enough, man, I think there were probably more eyes on that fight considering it was on ESPN, and it made social media. It was like all over the place. So yeah, man. I mean, look, that's the one benefit from Saturday night, man, is that we didn't, we got a quality fight, and saw history made without having to dish out like $75, $80. You know what I'm saying? The one sticking point when they announced it was on ESPN. I was saluting them because that fight would have done horrible on pay-per-view, and then people would have missed out on a very historic night.
Right. You got anything else for him, Kayson?
Nah, that was it. I appreciate you coming on.
No, man, I appreciate y'all having me on. Like I said, man, y'all are doing your thing.
Appreciate it.
I see y'all doing the debating and everything. It's funny, man, because we do it within our crew too, man. I mean, we have a lot of times we agree for the most part, but there's times, man, where we don't agree at all, man, and it's like it gets heated, but it's why as far as boxing is concerned, I mean, it happens in other sports too, but we're diehards of the sport, man, and it's like, for what happened Saturday night, we live for those moments. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, most def, man. Rob, I want to thank you for coming on, man. Once all this is over, I definitely got to come out there and see you, man, because it's been a while.
Yo, you like I said, man, the house is open. We'll Clorox everything.
Most def.
It's all good.
Most def. Giannis 2021, man. Miami Heat, we're back, baby. That's all I gotta say. All right, Rob. We'll talk to you pretty soon, man.
All right, man. Take care, y'all.
All right, you have a good one. So that was my older cousin Rob, host of the Guard Your Grill Boxing Podcast. Want to thank him for coming on. That was much appreciated. Some great boxing talk. But now we got to get to it. Ty Lue, new head coach of the Clippers. What do you think?
Well deserved. I mean, it's kind of, I brought it up on here before. I thought if Doc Rivers ended up getting fired, that Ty Lue was kind of the person for the job. He's someone that's in-house, someone that's kind of been in this situation before. Same thing with Cleveland. He had someone who was ahead of him who had the job. He lost the job. He comes in. We know all the stories, him challenging LeBron and things like that, gets the best out of guys, gets them to come back down 3-1. So I think it's a situation he's been in before, which just makes him perfect for the job, if you ask me.
I agree. I think once Doc got the head coach in Philly, I thought the Clippers were the clear job that Ty Lue should have taken, and he did take it. I know one of the things I saw as far as Kawhi goes, that I think is going to be necessary for him having the job now, is challenging Kawhi for certain things. Was, Kawhi being a little entitled. He's got the championships with San Antonio and Toronto and everything. I know he never actually moved to LA. He's got the crib in San Diego and was just going, back and forth, coming in late to practices, team meetings, plane rides, stuff like that. I'm worried about because now where do the Los Angeles Clippers go? I know one thing that the Los Angeles Clippers need, they know they need, is a point guard. Patrick Beverley is a pesky defensive stopper. We know that. He kind of has to be because of his size or lack thereof. But don't love him as my starting point guard. Now, I know Rondo has an option. He can opt out or opt in. If he opts out, I think that's a guy you would go after. Especially now we're hearing the news that, Derrick Rose getting traded to the Lakers is looking not extremely likely, but a lot more likely than it was a year ago when those talks had first surfaced. So what are they going to do there? And if they are able to make certain moves, how far do you go? Because they said Kawhi is the only untouchable. I don't think you should disrupt too much of what you have put together already. Paul George, I don't have a problem moving on from him just because so far we have a pretty good sample size that says he just can't perform in the postseason. Seems like guys on that team don't really respect him right now. We heard once they got knocked out, he tried to put a speech and guys were rolling their eyes. So where do the Clippers go from here? They're right behind the Lakers as far as title favorites go, rightfully so. But where do they go from here now that they got their coach in place?
Like you said, I think it might start with a point guard. Someone like Rondo would be great. I think you kind of brought it up with Kawhi, and there's been a lot of other rumors out there with Kawhi now too about how he's kind of not that leader, kind of like to get in your face, or he's kind of one of those I show by example. He doesn't talk too much. So someone like Rondo, who's going to be that leader to get in guys' face, put them in the right place, I think it'll be great for that. And also, I think with another point guard in there, takes a lot of pressure off for Paul George. Like you said, with Patrick Beverly not being that type of point guard, they put a lot of kind of pressure on Paul George to kind of come bring the ball up a lot and kind of get them into a lot of sets. I think getting that point guard, whether it's Rondo, maybe D Rose too, even though D Rose is probably not that kind of get in your face type of guy, I think Rondo will kind of be perfect. Just that leader, and then someone that's going to take the ball pressure off of kind of Paul George and the other guys to get people in the right places.
Rondo would probably be the perfect guy for me. And not only that, I want to kind of expand on this here. If Rondo goes to the Clippers and they win another championship, Rondo is getting in the Hall of Fame. For sure, Rondo is getting in the Hall of Fame.
Definitely. I think Rondo kind of has a little case to get in there right now. Maybe not first.
I think it went up to like six. It was probably like, my bad to cut you off. It was probably like 40, something in the 40s percentage-wise of him getting in. The Lakers win it. I feel like it's up to 60 now. But yeah, I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, definitely. I think he has a case to get in now. I was going to say maybe not first ballot, but he'll probably get in there. Another ring will probably get him in there, maybe first ballot. But yeah, definitely. I think Rondo goes there, and then it just shows kind of how far Rondo has come. You think about it, he wasn't like the main guy on that 2018, but he was the starting point guard. You think you skip to 2010, he kind of became that guy. He was the triple-double Rondo kind of that we know. And then the team leaves, it breaks up. He goes to a couple spots when they say like he's kind of a mess in the locker room and things like that. He gets to the Lakers and just shows that he's still that guy. And even though like when he was in those places and they're like, oh, he's kind of a mess, this and that, they're kind of saying about him, he was always still playoff Rondo. When New Orleans got there, he always showed up. So I think for him to go there and then if they get another ring, I think that's just solidifies him as that leader that we all kind of know he is. And then like, especially because when he came in, I've been saying it on here a lot, that since he came in the playoffs, he was really the big difference for them. He was really that third guy. So I think if he goes to the Clippers and they end up getting it, then it just solidifies Rondo maybe like 100%. Yeah,
100%, man, 100%. I'm focused on. I know that they're gonna make some shifts in that team now, especially now. The biggest thing was would they move on from Doc? They did that. Now I'm more focused on they're not done. They're gonna do some tweaks in here, and I'm just wondering what they're going to do and how far they're going to get. They're going to get into it. They clearly know they need a point guard. They're going to try and go after one. I think Rondo would be the perfect candidate. There's some other guys that they could go after that I don't really think are realistic, but, that's a conversation for another day. With that being said, I want to get into the Houston Rockets. A lot to talk about with the Houston Rockets. Daryl Morey has stepped down in the midst of a coaching search. They're not going to look for a new GM. They promoted their assistant GM to take over that role. Daryl Morey has been in place with the Rockets for about 13 years, by the way. Never tanked. He's well above 500 as a front office executive. Made some amazing trades. In a world where it's a little bit of a copycat league, some of the things that he's done, other teams have taken in their own, as far as you really using analytics to put a team together and things like that. So, when he decided to move on from everything, it was kind of like when Doc got let go by the Clippers. It's like, it's surprising, but not shocking. It's with the whole China thing going on. Now, to add to that, like I said, they're in the midst of a coaching search. Seems like we have two, especially with Ty Lue taking the Clippers job, we have two front runners in place. One of them escapes me at the moment, but the other one who I think is the front runner is former Rockets head coach Jeff Van Gundy. And you worry because he's been out of the coaching role for so long. He's been in the booth, covering games and everything like that. But I actually think he might. I thought Sam Cassell would be a great hire for them. It seems like he's not in the running for it anymore. But Jeff Van Gundy, especially for if you're going to keep James Harden and Russ in place, I've always said neither of them have had a guy that could really get on them, which is why I didn't think Ty Lue should take the Rockets job, but I was a proponent in him going after it if that's what he wanted, because I know he's not afraid to hold stars accountable. Jeff Van Gundy could be that guy.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Daryl Morey thing is like you said, it's not shocking, but it's like surprising. I think just the timing of it too, because like you said, they're in the middle of a coaching search, and it kind of came out of nowhere. Like it seemed like he was gonna stay and things like that. So, and then he left him in like a weird spot. I think, I guess I think that hurts him leaving hurts Jeff Van Gundy a little bit to me because I seen how people bringing up that he had hired Jeff Van Gundy before and they had kind of had worked together. So I thought that relationship being there kind of gave Jeff Van Gundy kind of like a leg up on kind of what was going on. So now Tim Fertitta, he's kind of the man in charge now, and it's like we don't know where he kind of wants to go with the team and things like that. So with the other guy getting a second interview, and excuse me, his name slips my mind at the moment too. I wonder if they're kind of leaning more towards him, which would be interesting. But I think you should go with Jeff Van Gundy, someone we've seen him on ESPN, we've seen him coach before. I think someone who's kind of been there, done that, someone that can get the best out of those guys and kind of, like you said, get in their face and kind of has the respect of those guys. I don't know the history of the other guy too much, so I don't want to say he doesn't. But I think Jeff Van Gundy is someone that's going to come in and instantly have the respect kind of James Harden and Russell Westbrook, so where he can kind of get in their face and it won't be like, whoa, like, who are you? What have you done?
You just when it comes to Jeff Van Gundy, you just gotta hope he's not, because he's been away for so long as far as coaching goes. And you can make an argument that with him covering the games, he's not that out of touch. But you would hope that, because he's been gone for so long, that he won't be out of touch with today's game. But Raphael Stone was the assistant who's been promoted to GM now. I would probably push back on you and say it's not going to hurt Jeff Van Gundy too much, because from what I've heard, Raphael Stone has been a huge proponent. Wow, excuse me. Man. But Raphael Stone has been a huge piece in the coaching search. So with that being said, I think he's probably got a good say on who might come in. So maybe he's probably been putting it in there like Jeff Van Gundy could be our next guy. So we'll see. But I saw Draymond had made a comment a while ago how people were sleeping on the Rockets coming out of the West. I kind of want to agree with that a little bit, just because in their regular season team, we know it, but they had some circumstances going into the postseason that definitely hurt them. And I'm not saying they would have beat the Lakers or made it out the West, if they didn't have to deal with this. But they had some circumstances as far as Russell Westbrook goes and, Daniel House and all that definitely hindered them a little bit. And I think, James in the post game interview after the series was over said that he felt like he was a piece away. Me and you both agreed with that. It's not asinine to say they could come out of the West.
Yeah, definitely.
With the right coach.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I just brought it up here a couple of times. You think about the end of that game 2 and the game 3. They have better fourth quarters. It might go a little longer. Excuse me, too. The series might go a little longer. Maybe they have a chance to win. I'm not going to say they would have beat the Lakers, but the series could have looked a lot better. So then we're kind of looking at them differently. So you think about it, with everything they went through, they still had a chance to kind of change that series around, just a couple bad fourth quarters. So they are right there if you really, really look at it and kind of break it down. So like you said, right coach, maybe a piece or two more. I think they're there. They just got to, this is a crucial point for them right now. And that's why it's interesting to me right now that they got rid of Daryl Morey at this time, because it was kind of like random. But they had their next GM kind of in place, and he's been in the organization and things like that, like you were saying. So it's a crucial time for them. You hope that they get it right, but they don't take too long. Kind of with the Ty Lue thing, I don't know how the interview went, but some of these guys who they're looking at have other options. So it's like you want to get it right, but you also don't want to take too long where the best candidates might be off the table.
Yeah, and while we're on the topic of Van Gundy, Stan Van Gundy is actually in the running for the New Orleans Pelicans job. I don't know how to feel about it. How do you? It's not like he's a bad coach. He went to an NBA Finals as a head coach in Orlando. He did a very good job when he was the head coach of the Heat before he left and Pat Riley became the head coach again. He wasn't terrible. I think what hurt Stan Van Gundy in Detroit was that he had the coach's hat on as well as the general manager hat on, and that just doesn't – we saw with Doc, it didn't really work too well. When he went back to just coaching, he was doing fine. So when I say I don't know how to feel about it, I think I'm thinking too much of Detroit, but it's not a terrible hire. Who else is in the running for that job?
Yeah, it's interesting. I wouldn't knock him too much for Detroit. If you look at how Detroit has been since they blew up their team that made it to the conference finals, they kind of have been. They're not the best organization. I mean, they haven't been like terrible, but you think about it, like they brought Josh Smith and stuff, and like they just haven't. They're still trying to get back to where they were. So I think I wouldn't blame him for Detroit too much. They had like 7 coaches in the like the last 10 years. So it might not be the coach. It just might be like a tough situation that's going on over there right now. So I wouldn't blame him for Detroit too much, but I don't know if he's a great fit for New Orleans. I think maybe he said something to them, maybe in interviews and stuff. I wouldn't knock it just yet. They're a young team. You saw he was able to do with the New Orleans teams and things like that. So, I mean, new Orlando teams and things like that. I wouldn't knock it too much. I thought they'd probably go with maybe a young and upcoming coach, someone like maybe Kenny Atkinson or somebody who could get the best out of some of the young players and someone that can kind of grow with the team too. But I wouldn't knock Stan Van Gundy too much. We know he knows basketball, so maybe in the right fit, a little better talent, and a small market too. He might be able to do something.
Definitely could help, and they've got a lot of young talent there. So whoever gets that job is they've for sure got something to work with, But the draft is coming up. I think one of the biggest things that I've heard in regards to the draft is who would go number one. Personally, I actually thought that my man from Georgia would be the number one pick, considering Minnesota had it. You can get a 2-guard in there to run with D'Angelo Russell in that backcourt. But it's kind of sounding like if they don't trade that number one pick to get an established guy to roll with Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell, they might actually take LaMelo Ball. So I would guess that you would just kind of throw him at the 2-guard spot, which I'm not mad at because I've always kind of viewed him as a little more of a 2-guard anyway, and then maybe have them, go back and forth with, ball handling duties. But like from what I'm gathering, it seems like that a lot of these teams are going with best available rather than fit, which I don't disagree with, by the way. But, what are you thinking when you see like some of these thoughts going into the draft?
Yeah, definitely. If they don't trade it, I think you put LaMelo Ball at the 1. I always looked at D'Angelo Russell as a 2. I know he's kind of maybe done his best work at the 1, but even like college, he was a 2. I think with the Nets and stuff, he played with Spencer Dinwiddie and things like that. I think his shot is maybe more established right now. We don't know what LaMelo Ball's shot is going to look like in the NBA. We've seen what he's able to do in high school, shoot from half court and things like that. But kind of since his 1 year, kind of overseas and things like that, he wasn't the greatest 3-point shooter. I just think he's very crafty and creative. I think people figure him as the best playmaker, the most creative playmaker here. So I think he might want the ball in his hand. And I think, like you said, they're going to go back and forth with playing both ball handlers. So you look at it maybe as more like a combo guard type of thing. But I think I would want the ball in LaMelo Ball's hand right now for the most part. But, like down the stretch, I'll probably go D'Angelo Russell and things like that. But I think D'Angelo Russell kind of being established a little more in the league, he should be able to play off ball a little more right now and then play as that kind of backup point guard. He's still got to get his touches with the ball, but I'd rather LaMelo Ball because what we know he gives us right now is playmaking and things like that. So you'd want the ball in his hands and, just things like that.
I wouldn't even want to knock D'Angelo Russell's playmaking ability, though. I thought, especially in Brooklyn, he shocked me a little. Not shocked me, but surprised me a little bit with how well of a playmaker he had become. So that's kind of like why I would, say like, okay, they're possibly bringing LaMelo Ball in, but we'll see. I can see it working. I know they got big plans. They want to win over there. They've got established guys now, so we'll definitely see the draft process has already begun. It's coming up, so we'll definitely keep you guys posted on that as well. Want to get into the NFL as we just had Sunday football. And right now we had 2 Monday football games. 5:00, the Chiefs played the Buffalo Bills. Chiefs topped the Bills in that one. The Arizona Cardinals are playing the Dallas Cowboys right now, and the Cardinals are up 21-0. Don't even want to talk about that, though. I want to get into the New York Giants getting their first win of the season. As a Giants fan, I should be happy about this. I mean, great for the team to get their first win. But, I look back at that game and it wasn't an exciting win. The Giants, as far as offense went, it wasn't like they did some great things there. I looked at it and I said, Daniel Jones still isn't doing anything that's making me say I like this guy for the future. I'm not saying let's get rid of him. I think there might be something there. He shows good touch on his passes at certain points. It hasn't been consistent this season. And he had a 49-yard run, something like that yesterday as well. So the mobility's there. He's very underrated. His athleticism is very underrated. But I mean, he still turns the ball over too much, and when you do that, you put your team in holes. I mean, it's the reason why Jameis Winston isn't in Tampa anymore. As great as Jameis Winston is, he is also too turnover prone where it just can't work. So I'm still gonna reserve judgment. We still got a couple games left where he could show me some things, but it doesn't look like Dave Gettleman is going to be around for the future, and Joe Judge was not a part of the regime that drafted Daniel Jones. So he really doesn't have too much ties to him. Maybe they could see another quarterback come in there. Who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting because they got their first win, but it came down to the wire. I think Washington had
bad teams.
Yeah, Washington had the ball with a chance to kind of win it there. It's if they lost, I was thinking when is it too early to start tanking? I was like, they go down 0-6. Is it time maybe to kind of start tanking the season a little bit? But I guess it still might be a little too early. But even still, it's like they're now 1-5. We kind of don't expect them to make the playoffs or anything like that. There's some great quarterbacks out there that's going to be the top picks. Where do they go from here?
What's crazy is they're 1-5, and the NFC East is so bad that they're still in it. But I guess the other, I'll give Joe Judge props, man. The team actually does play for him. They go out there and they fight for him. The thing I'm kind of, thinking about now is if the turnovers continue the way that they have for Daniel Jones, we talked about how, Joe Judge didn't draft this dude. Dwayne Haskins just got bent, not only benched, but, and now he's an inactive player. It's in the third string in Washington. We're talking about Baker Mayfield possibly, getting benched and things like that. If the turnovers continue, is it out of the realm that you bench Daniel Jones?
I don't think so. I think if you're not liking what you're seeing, especially like you said, guys are coming out there playing for him. So he's kind of getting the best out of kind of what he has, Joe Judge, I'm saying. So, if he didn't draft him like you were saying. So, if he wants to maybe try another quarterback, I think that kind of goes into, too, when is it too early to start taking? Because you think about it, you pull him out and kind of maybe put your backup string quarterback in. You probably expect maybe not as many turnovers, but you don't expect too much wins either. So, it's would that be the point where they're kind of okay, this season's maybe not it? And I think if he does do that, it may – because if you start tanking, it's you're going after one of those top quarterbacks. So if you end up benching your quarterback that you have now and start taking, it's kind of maybe they're looking at one of those top quarterbacks.
I think it's I'm not going to put it out of the realm of possibility that they'll start looking at those guys. I don't think that they'll tank. I think that team is going to play hard every night. We see it on the defensive side of the ball, which is great. Like I said last week when we talked about them, the defense for a few years had been one of their weak points, and they've actually been the strong part. It's been the offense now. So I mean, the way that the defense plays, you can't really see them tanking unless they just start pulling guys out. So I think they're going to keep fighting for them. They're just not a good team, so the losses are going to continue to pile on, and they'll have their pick of quarterbacks. Like the Jets, I don't even want to talk too much about the Jets. They got blanked by Miami yesterday. They're just bad, and for some reason, Adam Gase still has a job. The Jets could possibly – Sam Darnold's development we talked about has not been good. The Jets could possibly go after a quarterback as well and move on from Darnold via trade or whatever. And, what I'm worried about with the quarterback prospects, and this is why I brought up the Jets, because it could be history, reliving its history repeating itself. The Jets had the number one pick You know, a long time ago, Peyton Manning was supposed to be the guy, and when the Jets had the number 1 pick, he said, "I'm going to stay in school for another year." Trevor Lawrence has the option to stay in school another year, and the Jets are so bad. I'm this is my analyst hat on, just what I'm seeing. I'm not being biased or anything like that. The Jets are so bad from top to bottom, coaching and everything like that. I don't even know how Adam Gase does a job, but the Jets are so bad that if you're Trevor Lawrence, maybe it's in your best interest to stay in school another. If you're Justin Fields of Ohio State, who would then be the number one quarterback on the board, if Trevor Lawrence decides to stay another year, maybe it's in your best interest to stay at Ohio State.
Yeah, maybe, but I think it could go that way, but also it could maybe go the way of kind of like how Eli did. He can try to maybe work his way to a certain team. Maybe he tells them, the Jets got the first pick, but I'm not really gonna play for them. So it maybe, if he could do that, maybe it'll maybe depend to me if who has the second pick, because that's where he's gonna be like, okay, say if the Jets got the first pick, but the Giants have the second pick. They're both New York teams and they're both bad, but the Giants are they've been a better organization overall. So I think he maybe like you let them know that I'm maybe gonna try to work my way to the Giants or whatever second team is under y'all that may be a better option. And then if both quarterbacks end up doing that, I think that's gonna look real bad on the Jets organization. But I think with one of them, you pick, okay, I'm going to the second team here, and you can take that other quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, man. We'll see. You got other teams like I know Arthur Blank, who owns the Atlanta Falcons, said he's not whoever he brings in, because they got rid of the head coach and things like that. Whoever he brings in, he's not going to be tied to Matt Ryan moving forward. So they could even draft another quarterback too. There, like Justin Fields is actually from Georgia, so. There's some quarterback. It's a quarterbacks league. There's some quarterback needy teams. There's also a quarterback who lives in New York City that's been blackballed. That if any of you guys need a quarterback, should probably sign that guy. Maybe not even to be a starter, but just saying.
Yeah, definitely. It's gonna be real telling coming up now as you bring that up, because like you said, a couple quarterbacks have been benched recently. We don't know what's gonna happen with the Giants quarterback if he may get benched. It sounds like a perfect time to bring in Kaepernick. I don't see why not.
Yeah, same here, man. Same here. But some teams want to go about things a different way. This whole conversation we've gotten into before. We sound like broken records now because we keep talking about it. But you guys know where we stand on that.
Yeah, definitely.
Anything else we got to talk about before we get out of here?
I think that's it for. I mean, you want to get into the Packers loss real fast. I think that maybe just that week off kind of maybe threw them off a little bit. I think Tampa Bay came out and played great too. So it was maybe those two things that them getting their first loss over there.
I think Tampa's defensive front was built, to kind of disrupt disrupt things. Like they were built to disrupt Christian McCaffrey, because they're in that division. They were built to disrupt what Christian McCaffrey does out in Carolina and what Alvin Kamara does out in New Orleans. So they and Aaron Rodgers and them, they got up to a quick 10-0 lead. Aaron Rodgers hasn't thrown double-digit pick sixes or in his career. He hasn't thrown double-digit interceptions in his career, let alone pick sixes. I think they kind of flustered him a little bit. You mentioned the week off. Tampa definitely needed the win. I think it was more Tampa than it was Green Bay being bad, especially on the defensive. Like a lot of people are bigging up Tom Brady right now. I think Tom Brady played a pretty well enough game. Bruce Arians switched it up where he didn't go to that typical Bruce Arians offense where, I want to air it out because we know that's not Tom Brady's game. He wants to check the ball down. He doesn't have the arm to really air it out like that. But, if the defensive front doesn't do what they do, it's possible that the Packers because the Packers were out of the game, fairly quickly once that pick six happened. But it's possible the Packers are not only still in that game, but have a chance to win it if the defensive front doesn't do what they do. And, I think the other thing that was kind of shocking to me in that game was when they decided to take Aaron Rodgers out because the game was clearly out of reach. Jordan Love didn't even play. They went to I don't even know my man's name that they went to him. I wasn't paying attention to the game, but when I heard that they were making the quarterback change, I was like, where's Jordan Love?
Yeah, definitely. That's interesting. I think I agree with you. The defense deserves a lot of credit. Those two pick sixes is really kind of what changed the whole game around. But yeah, and I guess we shout out to Tua who got the play for Miami the other
So,
day. So shout out to him. So that's all I got for this week.
yeah, man, it was cool seeing him after the game. The game just sit out there on the field alone, kind of take the moment in. A year ago he had a devastating injury that people thought could have ended his career, and here he is throwing his first NFL passes. So that was real cool to see, man.
Yeah, definitely. Don't take those moments for granted. You never know what can happen. So see him out there was to sit out there after the game and things like that was really cool. So just wish the best for him going forward.
For sure, man. For sure, most def. Want to thank Rob for coming on. Check out that Guard Your Grill boxing podcast when you guys get a chance. They're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Definitely give those guys a look, man. We'll catch you guys next week. Peace.